When you get older, people start treating you like glass. They tell you to slow down, to be careful, to let others take care of things. After my wife passed away, I started hearing it more and more. My kids had moved states away, busy with their own families. Neighbors offered casseroles and condolences. And my nephew, Ryan, offered to help me with the paperwork. At first, I thought it was kindness. I'm George Lawson, 68 years old, retired mechanic, widower. I'd spent 40 years with the same woman, working the same garage, living in the same modest house. My wife, Linda, had been my anchor. When cancer took her, it was like someone cut the ropes and left me adrift. Ryan showed up at the funeral in a sharp suit, his arm around my shoulder like a lifeline. He was my sister's boy, charming, ambitious, always the one relatives bragged about. He worked in finance, though I never quite understood what that meant. All I knew was that he drove a nicer car than I ever had and seemed to know exactly what to say to make people trust him. "Uncle George," he said after the service, "don't worry about a thing. I'll help you sort out all the bank stuff, the insurance, whatever you need. You just focus on healing." I was tired. Grief does that. It makes you weak, makes you want someone else to hold the wheel. So I nodded. "Thank you, son. I appreciate that." Within a week, Ryan was at my kitchen table with folders, forms, and that easy smile of his. He explained things quickly, almost too quickly, sliding papers across for me to sign. "Just standard transfers, uncle. Simplifying accounts. Nothing complicated." I signed. My hand shook more than I liked, but I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He was family. The first month after Linda's passing, I barely noticed anything but the silence in the house. Ryan stopped by often, bringing takeout, asking about bills, telling me not to stress. He even mowed the lawn a few times. My neighbors praised him. "You're lucky to have that boy," Mrs. Jenkins from across the street said. "So many kids these days don't care about their elders." I nodded. "Yeah, lucky." But then little things started to catch my attention. I got a letter from the bank about a change in my online access. I never used online banking. When I asked Ryan, he waved it off. "Oh, that's just me setting up auto pay for utilities. Makes it easier for you. Don't worry, uncle." A week later, I got a call from a loan company asking about a payment due. I told them they had the wrong number. They insisted it was tied to my name. Ryan laughed when I mentioned it. "Scammers, uncle. They target older folks. Don't answer those calls." I wanted to believe him. I tried to, but a seed of doubt had been planted. One evening, I was sorting through mail when I noticed my electricity bill had nearly doubled. I hadn't been using more power. When I asked Ryan, he said, "Inflation, uncle. Everything's going up." He spoke so smoothly, so confidently, that I almost doubted my own memory. And maybe that was the trick. Because grief makes you doubt yourself. Makes you wonder if maybe you're just not sharp anymore. One Sunday, Ryan drove me to church. On the way, he talked about how family should take care of family. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Some people end up in nursing homes because nobody's around to look after them. But I'd never let that happen to you, Uncle George. You can count on me." His words were honey. Sweet. Comforting. But somewhere inside, I felt a sting. Because when someone insists too hard that they're trustworthy, it's usually because they don't want you to ask why they need to say it at all. That night, I sat in my recliner with Linda's old photo album on my lap. Her smile looked back at me from our wedding day, from vacations, from Christmas mornings. She'd always been the cautious one, the one who read the fine print, who asked the hard questions. I wish she were there. I wish she could tell me if I was imagining things, or if the cracks I saw forming around Ryan's perfect act were real. Because if they were, then I wasn't just a grieving old man. I was prey. That night, as I closed the photo album, I promised Linda one thing. I wasn't going to let anyone turn me into a fool, not even family. In the weeks that followed, I tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. Grief makes your mind play tricks. Maybe I had forgotten a bill. Maybe the bank had made an error. Maybe the world really was just getting more expensive. That's what I told myself. But the little things wouldn't stop piling up. One morning, I got a call from the pharmacy saying my prescription was ready for pickup. I told them I hadn't ordered a refill yet. They insisted it had been charged to my account. When I checked the statement, there were extra charges for vitamins, supplements, and over-the-counter medicine I never bought. Ryan brushed it off with a chuckle. "Uncle, you must have hit auto refill. Don't worry, I'll handle it." He slid the paper out of my hand before I could argue, folded it neatly, and stuffed it into his folder. Another week, I got a letter about an overdue car payment. My car had been paid off for years. When I asked Ryan, he said, "Clerical error. Happens all the time." He spoke so quickly, so smoothly, that I almost believed him. Almost. But when the third notice came, a loan account with my name on it, one I never opened, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I drove to the bank myself. I don't drive much these days, but I needed answers. The young woman at the counter looked nervous when I explained the situation. She disappeared into the back and returned with the manager, a man I vaguely remembered from years ago. "Mr. Lawson," he said kindly, "are you aware that your nephew Ryan is an authorized co-signer on several of your accounts?" The words hit me like a hammer. "What?" He showed me the paperwork. There it was, my signature, shaky but mine. And Ryan's, bold and confident. I don't remember signing this," I said quietly. The manager gave me a careful look. "It happens, sir. Sometimes older clients forget details. Ryan assured us you wanted him to help manage things for you." Forget details. That phrase stuck in my head all the way home. I wasn't losing my memory. I knew I hadn't signed half the papers Ryan had slid across my kitchen table. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how clever he'd been. He didn't just take advantage of my grief. He was using my age as his weapon. If I said I didn't remember, people would just nod sympathetically and say, "Well, he's getting on in years." It was the perfect cover. That evening, I confronted Ryan, carefully. I held up the bank notice. "Ryan, what's this about a loan in my name?" He barely glanced at it. "Uncle, relax. It's just a consolidation loan. Makes things simpler. I told you about it." "No," I said firmly. "You didn't." For the first time, his smile flickered. Just for a second. Then it returned, bright as ever. "Look, you've been under a lot of stress since Aunt Linda passed. It's easy to forget. Trust me, I've got everything under control." There it was again. The implication that I was just a confused old man. I wanted to grab him by the collar and shake him. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I nodded slowly. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I did forget." His smile widened. He thought he'd won. But inside, something cold settled in me. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about respect. About dignity. About a man who thought he could erase me from my own life with forged signatures and smooth lies. That night, I sat in the dark with Linda's photo on the nightstand. "Am I crazy?" I whispered. "Or is he stealing from me right under my nose?" The house gave no answer. Just the tick of the clock on the wall, each second reminding me that time was running out to protect what was mine. I realized then that I couldn't just hope Ryan would stop. He wouldn't. People like him never stop. They only take more. The next morning, I called the bank manager back. "Sir," I said, steady now, "I need copies of every single document my nephew had me sign. Every loan, every account, every authorization. And I want them certified." There was silence on the line. Then the manager sighed. "Of course, Mr. Lawson. But may I ask why?" I looked out the window at Ryan's car in my driveway. He was inside, sipping my coffee, probably planning his next move. "Because," I said quietly, "I'm not as forgetful as he thinks." Backhand index pointing right, let me ask you. If you found out your own nephew might be forging your name and draining your accounts, would you confront him immediately? Or would you stay silent and start building proof? Share your thoughts in the comments. Fire, and don't forget, subscribe to Sweetest Revenge for more stories where family betrayal cuts the deepest and revenge comes back colder than blood. As I hung up the phone, a strange calm settled over me. Ryan thought he was playing chess with an old man losing his memory. But what he didn't know was that the game had just changed. The first rule of revenge is patience. That's something age teaches you better than youth ever can. Young men explode, old men wait. And so I waited. After I saw those forged signatures at the bank, I knew Ryan had crossed the line. But instead of charging at him with accusations, I chose something far more dangerous. I decided to play the fool. The next time Ryan came over, I let my hand shake more than usual when I signed the grocery check. I furrowed my brow, pretended to lose track of what day it was. When he explained something quickly, I nodded like I hadn't fully followed but was too embarrassed to admit it. His eyes lit up. I could see it. The satisfaction of a predator realizing his prey was weaker than he thought. He became bolder almost immediately. Bills started arriving late, even though Ryan promised they were on auto-pay. More letters from banks came, referencing accounts I'd never opened. He brushed them off with that easy smile. Just paperwork, uncle. Don't trouble yourself. Every time, I smiled back. You're such a good boy, Ryan. I don't know what I'd do without you. And every time, his chest puffed up with pride at his own deception. But behind that mask of gratitude, I was working. I found an attorney through an old friend, a sharp woman named Claire Whitmore, who specialized in elder financial abuse. She didn't waste words when I explained my suspicions. Mr. Lawson, she said, sliding her glasses down her nose as she examined the documents I brought. Your nephew isn't just helping himself to your accounts. He's setting you up. These loans in your name? They're building a case that you're incompetent. Eventually, he'll push for power of attorney. The words hit me like a cold wind. Power of attorney? You mean he could take everything, control your medical care, your assets, even where you live, she said. And by the time your family caught on, the damage would be permanent. I clenched my fists. Not if I catch him first. She studied me. Then you'll need proof. Real proof. Not just your word against his. Men like your nephew count on people assuming the old man is confused. Her words stung, but I knew she was right. Claire introduced me to a private investigator named Tom Diaz. A wiry man in his 50s, quiet, sharp-eyed. He didn't waste time. Within a week, he had traced several accounts Ryan had opened using my name. He showed me photos of Ryan walking into banks, withdrawing cash. Copies of checks with my forged signature. Tom slid the evidence across the diner table one morning, the smell of coffee and bacon filling the air. Your nephew's sloppy. He thinks you'll never fight back. That's his weakness. I stared at the photographs, the bank slips, the mountain of proof. For the first time in weeks, I felt steady. The game had shifted again. That evening, Ryan came by with takeout. He was all smiles, setting cartons of Chinese food on the table. Thought you'd like a treat, uncle. You doing okay? Remember to take your pills today? I forced a laugh. Sometimes I forget. Thank God you're here to keep me straight. His smile widened. He leaned back in his chair, looking like a king in his castle. I wanted to slam the evidence in his face. Wanted to shout, I'm not your fool. But instead, I sipped my tea and asked, you know, Ryan, I've been thinking. Maybe I should put you on all my accounts, just to make things simpler. His eyes lit up like Christmas morning. That's a great idea, uncle. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. I nodded slowly, hiding the fire in my chest. Let him think he was winning. Let him think the old man was blind and broken. Because when the time came, I wasn't going to just accuse him. I was going to bury him in his own lies, in front of the entire family. That night, after Ryan left, I sat at my desk, the evidence neatly stacked in a folder Claire had labeled Exhibit A. The word stuck with me. Exhibit. Because soon, Ryan wasn't just going to be my nephew. He was going to be a defendant. And the courtroom where I exposed him would be my dining room. When you've got the proof, the hardest part isn't collecting it. It's waiting. I had everything I needed: bank slips, forged checks, surveillance photos, even affidavits from the investigator. Claire told me we could go straight to the police, that the evidence was more than enough. But I didn't want it to be quiet. Ryan had strutted around in front of our family for months, painting himself as the golden nephew, the savior who took care of poor old Uncle George. If I filed a report and let the cops quietly take him, people would still whisper. Some would even defend him. No, his mask had to come off in front of everyone. So I chose the perfect stage, a family dinner. I called my sister, Ryan's mother, and told her I wanted everyone together. Nieces, nephews, cousins. I've been feeling sentimental, I said. Want to talk about my will, about family things. It'd mean a lot to me. She was thrilled. Oh, George, that's wonderful. And Ryan has been such a blessing to you. I'll tell him to help with the arrangements. Perfect. Behind the scenes, I called Claire. Make sure the sheriff is free that evening, I said. And bring the file. She didn't ask questions. She just said, it'll be done. The week crawled by. Ryan came over often, still playing his role. He had no idea that while he smiled at me across the table, I was rehearsing how I'd pull the floor out from under him. Sunday came. The house smelled of roast chicken and baked bread, the kind of smell that makes you think of comfort and family. Relatives filled the dining room, kids running around, laughter spilling through the halls. Ryan was in his element. He wore a crisp shirt, tie loosened just enough to look relaxed. He poured drinks, carved meat, laughed the loudest at every joke. Halfway through dinner, my sister raised her glass. To Ryan, she said proudly, For everything he's done for George since Linda passed. We're lucky to have him." The table erupted in applause. Ryan's smile stretched wide as he patted my shoulder. "Just doing what family does," he said modestly, though his eyes gleamed. I forced a chuckle. Yes, Ryan's been handling everything. He didn't notice the edge in my tone. The conversation turned to stories of the past, but my mind was on the folder tucked beneath my chair. Claire and the sheriff sat quietly near the end of the table, introduced as friends from church. No one questioned it. When the plates were cleared, I tapped my glass. The room hushed. "I want to say a few words," I began. "About family. About trust. About what it means when you put your life in someone else's hands." Ryan leaned back, smug, certain this was his moment to shine. "For months," I continued, "I've been told how lucky I am to have Ryan looking after me. How generous he's been with his time, how smart he is with money." Ryan smiled, raised his glass. "Oh, Uncle, you're too kind." I stared at him. "Am I?" The projector flickered on. The first slide appeared on the wall, a bank slip with my name on it. My signature shaky at the bottom. The room went still. "That's your signature, isn't it, Uncle?" Ryan said quickly. "I helped you with that." I nodded slowly. "Funny you say that. Because according to a handwriting expert, this isn't my signature at all. It's a forgery." Gasps filled the room. My sister's face paled. The next slide appeared. A photograph of Ryan walking into a bank, withdrawing cash. Date stamped, clear as day. Whispers rippled around the table. "Ryan," I said evenly, "would you like to explain why you've been opening loans in my name?" His face reddened. "Uncle, that's nonsense. You asked me to help consolidate." I cut him off with a raised hand. "Don't bother. I've got copies of every forged document, every transaction, every lie." The sheriff shifted in his seat, ready. Claire laid the folder on the table, sliding the proof across the polished wood for all to see. Ryan's voice rose, panicked now. "This is insane. You're confused, Uncle. Everyone knows you've been forgetful." I stood. My voice cracked like a whip. "I may be old, Ryan, but I am not senile. And I am not your fool." The room was silent. My sister covered her mouth with her hand, eyes wide with horror. I looked straight at Ryan. "You wanted to steal from me? You wanted to erase me with forged signatures? Tonight, in front of the family you pretended to impress, I erase you." Backhand index pointing right. "What would you do if your nephew was stealing your future behind your back? Would you forgive him quietly, or would you expose him in front of everyone? Tell me in the comments. Fire, and don't forget, subscribe to Sweetest Revenge for more stories where betrayal hides behind family smiles, and revenge rips the mask away. Ryan's hand trembled as he slammed his glass down. "You'll regret this, old man." But it was too late. The sheriff was already rising from his chair, and Ryan's golden mask had shattered. The room froze when I finished speaking. For a moment, all I heard was the hum of the projector and the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. Ryan's face was red, his jaw clenched tight, his hands trembling as if he wanted to snatch the papers off the table and tear them to shreds. Then the sheriff stood. Calm, steady. His voice cut through the silence. "Ryan Mitchell, you are hereby served with notice of investigation into fraud, forgery, and elder financial abuse." Gasps erupted around the table. My sister let out a strangled sound, half cry, half denial. "No, no, that can't be." But the sheriff laid the papers right in front of Ryan, firm and undeniable. Claire slid the photographs closer, the bank records shining under the light. Ryan shot up from his chair, knocking it back with a crash. "This is a setup. Uncle George doesn't know what he's talking about. He's old. He's confused. You all know that." I rose slowly. "Old, yes. Confused, no." I locked eyes with him. "I may have gray hair and stiff knees, but I've lived long enough to know when someone's trying to turn me into prey." He pointed at me, voice cracking. "You're lying. You signed those papers. You begged me to help you." I didn't flinch. "I begged you for nothing. You stole. You forged. And you thought my grief and my age made me blind." The family sat in stunned silence. My eldest nephew pushed his chair back, disgust etched across his face. My sister buried her face in her hands. The grandchildren stared wide-eyed, confused but sensing the storm had broken. Ryan's bravado broke then. His shoulders sagged. His eyes darted like a trapped animal's. "Uncle, please. We can fix this. Just tell them it's a misunderstanding. We'll move the money back, Close the accounts. I cut him off. You don't get to beg now. You wanted to erase me with forged signatures. Tonight, I erase the mask you wore in this family. The sheriff stepped forward. Mr. Mitchell, you'll need to come with me. Ryan's face twisted, anger, fear, shame all colliding. He turned to the family, desperate. You believe me, don't you? I was just trying to help him. No one answered. My sister stared at her plate, silent tears sliding down her cheeks. The others looked away. The silence of a family realizing the golden boy they praised was nothing but a thief. The sheriff guided him out, his protests growing weaker as the door closed behind them. The dining room felt colder after that. No one touched their plates. The children fidgeted. My sister finally whispered, George, I don't know what to say. I sighed heavy. Say nothing. The proof said it all. One by one, the family drifted out. Some hugged me quietly. Others couldn't meet my eyes. By the end of the night, only Claire and I remained at the table, the evidence scattered like ashes of what once was. She packed the folder, her voice low. You did the right thing. I nodded, though my chest felt hollow. Maybe, but the right thing doesn't always feel good. When the house was empty, I sat alone in the quiet. The roast chicken on the table had gone cold. The laughter that had once filled this home was gone, replaced by a silence heavier than grief. I looked at Linda's photo on the mantel. I kept my dignity, I whispered, but I lost more family tonight than I ever wanted to. The truth is, revenge gave me justice. Ryan will face charges, his reputation ruined, his freedom hanging by a thread. But it also left scars across the family name that will never fade. And maybe that's what betrayal always costs. Not just money, not just pride, but the blood ties you can never mend. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of years pressing down, and let the truth settle in. Ryan thought he was erasing me, but in the end, it was his own name that vanished. Backhand index pointing right. What about you? If your nephew tried to steal your entire future, would you forgive to keep family intact? Or would you burn the mask off him in front of everyone? Tell me in the comments. Fire, and don't forget, subscribe to Sweetest Revenge for more stories where betrayal hides in your own bloodline, and revenge becomes the only language left to speak. The night ended not with celebration, but with truth. And though truth is bitter, it is still better than a lie. That was the fall of Ryan. And that was the price of my revenge.